The so-called Joint Sword 2024A Chinese encirclement drill around Taiwan was nothing but a bluff. Military spokesperson confidently said the exercise aimed to test joint seizure of power, joint strike, and area control capabilities. However, the drill turned into an empty fort strategy. The main forces went missing, destroyers were absent, landing ships were nowhere to be seen, and Air Force fighters operated independently. This sham exercise showed the lack of reliability of the Chinese PLA. According to Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense, out of the approximately 50 PLA aircrafts in the drill, one J-10 and one J-16 fighter were locked on by Taiwan's F-16V fighters. Critical components of the air combat system, like early warning and electronic warfare aircraft, were completely absent. On the ground in China, the 71st Group Army in Huzhou, the 72nd Group Army in Huzhou, and the 73rd Group Army in Xiamen stayed inactive. The PLA claimed to have deployed a Type 071 landing ship, but it seemed to be nominally participating, with no sight of the vessel. The Marine Corps were also nowhere to be seen. As for the Navy, 15 warships mainly from the Fujian and Guangdong provinces, such as Xiamen, Fuzhou, and Wenzhou cities participated. These warships were mostly Type 054A frigates and 056 frigates. The main 052C and 052D destroyers and hundreds of YJ-18 anti-ship missiles of the PLA Eastern Theater Command were notably absent. It seems they were playing dodgeball, considering they are prime targets for Taiwan's missiles in actual combat. Besides these strange events, the PLA's drill also had significant loopholes in the designation of exercise areas. Surprisingly, the 5 exercise zones around Taiwan did not have clear coordinates marked in the announcements. In past drills in the Yellow Sea and other areas, the PLA would precisely mark the coordinates of exercise zones and deploy enough ships to patrol surrounding waters. This prevented foreign vessels from straying into the area. The rocket force also refrained from launching missiles, fearing they might accidentally hit passing commercial ships, causing a disaster. The PLA's J-10 and J-16 fighters became live targets for Taiwan's F-16V fighters, constantly being locked on. The so-called national treasure J-20 fighters stayed hidden in hangars, safely away from the Taiwan independence proponents. Furthermore, the Eastern Theater Command's amphibious forces, including a Type 075 amphibious assault ship, which usually docks at Sanya Port in the Southern Theater Command, did not appear. Speculations suggest that insufficient mobilization time prevented timely arrival at the exercise area. The entire exercise was like a basketball game with the main players absent, forcing the team to cobble together a makeshift lineup. The amphibious forces, tasked with critical roles like crossing the sea and establishing beachheads, were missing entirely. The grand military drill, in terms of troop deployment and equipment selection, was inconsistent with its stated goals. This led to suspicions that the entire operation, from planning to execution, was hastily conducted. In terms of joint operations, the PLA's Navy and Air Force lacked coordination. From publicly available footage, only a few Type 054A frigates and 056 frigates were seen patrolling the exercise area, with no effective coordination with airborne fighters. Although many J-10 and J-16 fighters participated, they appeared to operate independently without coordinated training with naval units. The entire force resembled a hastily assembled army that lacked basic exercise plans. The recent PLA exercises around the Taiwan Strait aren't really about military training, they have political motives. The first one was in August 2022, when U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. The second was last year when Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen passed through the U.S. and met with the House Speaker. The third was due to Vice President Lai Ching-te's U.S. transit. Now, this is the fourth time. Despite the PLA claiming this exercise is to enhance joint operations and encircle Taiwan, there are no real tactical maneuvers. It's a way to show the Chinese people that Taiwan independence activists are being punished. From a military perspective, these drills are hastily prepared, lack specific targeting, and aren't very realistic. They don't pose a real threat to Taiwan's security, which is why Taiwan's official and public reactions have been calm and restrained. The Taiwan stock market even rose, especially in the semiconductor and electronics sectors. This was because international investors see Taiwan as likely to prevail in any conflict with China thanks to US and ally support. Recently, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense established new defense protocols. If PLA aircraft cross the 24 nautical mile line, it's considered a major threat, and the Taiwan military has a right to fire back. In future exercises, PLA aircraft might test this line to see how Taiwan reacts. However, neither side wants to escalate the situation. Even if PLA aircraft cross the line, the decision to fire remains with the Ministry of National Defense or even the President ensuring caution. Looking at the PLA's exercise area, their military intentions are clear. The zones near Hualien, north of Keelung, and southwest of Kaohsiung are close to important Taiwan Air Force and Navy bases. Hualien's mountain base shelters up to 200 aircrafts. Keelung and Zuoying are home to Taiwan's main naval fleets. The PLA exercises in these areas to familiarize themselves with the environment and gather radar and electronic signal intelligence. In a real conflict, their anti-radiation missiles could target these signal sources to strike Taiwan's radar and communication systems. Additionally, the PLA's drills included operations around outlying islands like Kinmen, Matsu, and Dongying. However, it was mainly patrol boats from the China Coast Guard, not naval warships, operating in these areas. These patrol boats just circled the islands aimlessly. In response to the PLA's posturing, Taiwan's military demonstrated strong combat readiness and quick response capabilities. Under President Lai's command, Taiwan's defense forces were fully deployed, with nearly all missiles in place, creating an impressive show of force. Fully armed F-16V fighters took to the skies, locking onto Chinese H-6 bombers and J-16 fighters at 16,000 feet. The AAQ-33 sniper pod's targeting range is 5 times greater than before, with 10 times more precision. Also, AIM-9X Sidewinder missiles were ready to shoot down targets. The Taiwan Navy also responded actively, deploying over 300 anti-aircraft and anti-ship missiles, including HF-2 and HF-3 missiles. The Marine Corps' missile units went on alert. P-3C Orion anti-submarine aircraft patrolled the waters, and the Sharp Kite drones monitored and identified maritime targets. Various warships, like the Chen Kun, Lafayette, and Keelung, closely monitored Chinese naval and Coast Guard vessels. They maintained a one-to-one shadowing approach, sometimes getting as close as 1 kilometer. Notably, Taiwan deployed its new Tuo-Jing-class frigates, equipped with multiple anti-ship and air defense missiles. Besides advanced weaponry, Taiwan boasts impressive intelligence gathering capabilities that intimidate the PLA. Taiwan can even detect stealth J-20 fighters, although a spokesperson's careless revelation of the radar's deployment location led to disciplinary action for several defense officials. During this exercise, PLA air and naval forces approached within 44 kilometers of Taiwan, but no live ammunition was used in the Taiwan Strait. This restraint was likely due to a U.S. threat of overwhelming retaliation if live fire was used. Chinese state media's promotional videos of the exercise were mostly computer-generated animations intended to reassure the domestic audience and maintain domestic stability. Moreover, the PLA's military exercises have become an object of ridicule globally. The U.S. Air Force's F-22 Raptor squadron introduced a new patch showing an F-22 shooting down a Winnie the Pooh figure, symbolizing the U.S.'s firm stance against China. This patch quickly went viral on social media, with many people applauding and mocking Xi Jinping. It's clear that the PLA's aggressive actions have caused widespread resentment and caution worldwide. On May 24th, the first tropical depression of the year formed in the Northwest Pacific, which might turn into the first typhoon of the year named Ai Weinie, sounding like Winnie. Some wondered, is nature also subtly criticizing Xi Jinping? Overall, this PLA exercise is not too much of a worry. It seems more like a political gesture than a sign of an imminent military takeover of Taiwan. A real military operation would require thorough preparation and training which this exercise lacks. However, it's still important to keep a close watch on the PLA's movements because the CCP might take risky actions against Taiwan before 2027 to divert domestic issues and assert its authority. Xi Jinping lacks understanding of Taiwan in its public sentiment. Every time China ramps up its military threats, support for the Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, increases, while support for the pro-China KMT drops. Even the KMT is urging the Chinese government to exercise restraint. If Xi's goal is to intimidate the Taiwanese people and deter them from supporting Lai Ching-te, he's achieving the opposite. In this crisis, President Lai has shown strong leadership and decisive action, earning the trust of the Taiwanese people. According to a recent poll by media company Formosa, Lai's approval rating has surged to 53%. Facing the PLA's aggressive actions, the 23 million people of Taiwan have shown no fear. They have taken to the streets to protest the Legislative Reform Act, which they believe is a CCP plot. The Taiwanese people are determined to defend their homeland and vow to expel any traitors. To them, this is a righteous battle for democracy and freedom. In fact, the vast majority of Taiwan's 23 million people oppose Chinese unification and desire peace, hoping to resolve cross-strait differences through dialogue rather than war. Many in China also oppose war. They may not support Taiwan independence, but they don't want to pay the price of unification. The international community broadly opposes any forceful change to the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. US, Japan, and other countries have repeatedly emphasized a peaceful resolution to the Taiwan issue. The EU and ASEAN also urge both sides to exercise restraint and manage differences through dialogue. However, the CCP's ambitions extend beyond the military. Besides military intimidation, the political intentions behind this exercise cannot be ignored. The CCP might be trying to support the opposition KMT party and the TPP, expand the Legislative Yuan's power, and interfere in Taiwan's internal affairs. The opposition parties want to pass the Legislative Reform Act to give the Legislative Yuan more power. This would let them handle issues the way mainland China does, such as deciding when to charge people for picking quarrels and provoking trouble, and decide what counts as malicious wage demands, what counts as disrespecting the legislature. This scheme has sparked strong dissatisfaction among the Taiwanese people. As of May 24th, over 100,000 people had gathered outside the Legislative Yuan to protest, with demonstrations spreading to many cities across Taiwan, involving people of all ages. The Legislative Reform Act has hit a nerve with the public. As time goes on, the public's understanding of the motives behind this bill has become clear, and there are growing questions about its legitimacy. Taiwan's legal community and numerous foreign experts, including those from the Diplomat magazine, have pointed out the legal loopholes in the bill and suspect a CCP influence behind it. Taiwanese citizens have vowed to expel any traitors from the Legislative Yuan. If some legislators vote in favor of a bill, they might lose in the next election. So many might oppose it, and it's still unclear if the bill will pass the final vote. While the Taiwan Strait crisis hadn't turned into a direct military conflict, the military and political showdown has been incredibly intense. Taiwan has shown its resolve to defend its homeland, both in terms of military defense and public protests. Through this crisis, Lai Ching-te's strong leadership ability has gained solid public support. Although things have calmed down for now, the military standoff around the Taiwan Strait is just starting. The US and its allies are conducting large-scale military operations in the Western Pacific to strengthen their presence, boosting deterrence and quick response capabilities. This will strategically contain China. From May 18th through the 24th, the US sent the USS Ronald Reagan carrier strike group to cruise near the Taiwan Strait. Official photos show sailors doing yoga on the deck to create a relaxed vibe. But in reality, the carrier was busy with takeoff and landing drills for aircrafts like the FA-18EF Super Hornet fighters, E-2D Advanced Hawkeye Early Warning Planes, EA-18G Growler electronic warfare planes. The US also sent RC-135 reconnaissance planes and P-8A anti-submarine patrol planes to monitor the area and keep an eye on Chinese military movements. The US has also activated its Patriot missile defense system in Okinawa, Japan. This was to improve its ability to respond to emergencies in the Western Pacific and prevent any accidental conflicts. In the next few months, the U.S. will hold large-scale joint naval exercises in the Western Pacific. From June 7th to the 18th, the U.S. will conduct the Valiant Shield exercise between the first and second island chains. Then, from late June to early August, the U.S. and 29 other countries, including Japan, the UK, Canada, Australia, and South Korea, will hold the largest ever Rim of the Pacific multinational joint exercise. This will involve 25,000 troops, dozens of warships, hundreds of aircrafts. The exercise location has moved from the Hawaiian Islands to the Western Pacific, which suggests the U.S. is concerned over China's growing military power in the region. In the South China Sea, U.S.-Philippines military cooperation is deepening. They recently built a new Coast Guard outpost on Itbayat Island in the northernmost Batanes Islands of the Philippines, just 150 kilometers from southern Taiwan. The U.S. also plans to deploy warships on Batan Island, the largest of the Batanes Islands. It will create a firewall from Taiwan to the Philippines to limit Chinese Navy movements from the Bashi Channel and Banlingtang Channel into the Western Pacific. The Typhoon weapon system deployed in the Philippines not long ago hasn't been withdrawn either. This system can intercept medium-range ballistic missiles and launch Tomahawk cruise missiles with a range of up to 1,700 kilometers, covering southeastern China from the Philippines. The presence of the U.S. in the Philippines shows it's fully preparing for potential security threats in the Western Pacific. In the face of the CCP's aggressive military pressure, Taiwan has shown strong determination to defend its homeland and democracy. From the government to the public, from the military to citizens, 23 million Taiwanese people are united and determined to resist any aggression. This fight against tyranny and for freedom is not just about Taiwan's future, but also sets an example for the world. Any attempt to take over a democratic state by force is doomed to fail.